Welcome to Wicked Shizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. And welcome back to Wicked Shizuku's Reviews Reads. And this is episode 84, so I hope you'll join me for more of the Lowell offerings. And today, I am going to read you two articles out of the Lowell offering, writings by New England Millwomen, 1840 to 1845. And this article is titled, A Week in the Mill. Much has been said of the factory girl and her employment. By some, she has been represented as dwelling in a sort of brick and mortar paradise, having so little to occupy thought save the weaving of gay and romantic fantasies. While the spindle or the wheel flies obediently beneath her glance, others have deemed her a mere servile drudge, chained to her labor by almost as strong a power as that which holds a bondsman in his fetters, and indeed some have already given her the title of White Slave of the North. Her real situation approaches neither one nor the other of these extremes. Her occupation is as laborious as that of almost any female who earns her own living, while it has also its sunny spots and its cheerful intervals, which make her hard labor seem comparatively pleasant and easy. Look at her as she commences her weekly task. The rest of the Sabbath has made her heart and her step light, and she is early at her accustomed place, awaiting the starting of the machinery. Everything has been cleaned and neatly arranged on the Saturday night. She has less to occupy her on Monday than on other days, and you may see her leaning from the window to watch the glitter of the sunrise on the water, or looking away at the distant forests and fields, while memory wanders to her beloved country home, or it may be that she is conversing with a sister laborer near, returning at regular intervals to see if her work is in order. Soon the breakfast bell rings. In a moment the whirling wheels are stopped, and she hastens to join the throng which is pouring through the open gate. At the table she mingles with a various group. Each dispatches the meal hurriedly, though not often in silence, and if, as is sometimes the case, the rules of politeness are not punctiliously observed by all, the excuse of some lively country girl would be, "They don't give us time for manners." The short half-hour is soon over. The bell rings again, and now our factory girl feels that she has commenced her day's work in earnest. The time is often apt to drag heavily till the dinner hour arrives. Perhaps some part of the work becomes deranged and stops. The constant friction causes a belt of leather to burst into a flame. A stranger visits the room and scans the features and dress of its inmates inquiringly. And there is little else to break the monotony. The afternoon passes in much the same manner. Now and then she mingles with a knot of busy talkers who have collected to discuss some new occurrence, or holds pleasant converse with some intelligent and agreeable friend, whose acquaintance she has formed since her factory life commenced. But much of the time she is left to her own thoughts. While at her work, the clattering and rumbling around her prevent any other noise from attracting her attention, and she must think or her life would be dull indeed. Thus the day passes on, and evening comes, the time which she feels to be exclusively her own. How much is done in the 3 short hours from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock? She has a new dress to finish, a call to make on some distant corporation, a meeting to attend. There is a lecture or a concert at some one of the public halls, and the attendance will be thin if she and her associates are not present. Or, if nothing more imperative demands her time, she takes a stroll through the street, or to the river with some of her mates, or sits down at home to peruse a new book. At 10 o'clock all is still for the night. The clang of the early bell awakes her to another day, very nearly the counterpart of the one which preceded it. And so the week rolls on in the same routine till Saturday comes. Saturday, the welcome sound. She busies herself to remove every particle of cotton and dust from her frame or looms, cheering herself meanwhile with sweet thoughts of the coming Sabbath. And when, at an earlier hour than usual, the mill is stopped, it looks almost beautiful in its neatness. Then approaches the Sabbath, the day of rest. If the factory girl keeps it well, it must be at church, for there are some in every boarding house who find an excuse for staying at home half the day at least. One of her roommates is indisposed, another says she must write a letter to her friends, another has worked so hard during the week that she thinks she ought to make this literally a day of rest, so that the retirement and meditation are out of the question. But in the Sabbath school and sanctuary her time is well spent. No one is more constant at church or earlier in her seat than the operative who has been trained to know the value of the institution of the gospel. The instructions which she receives sink deep into her heart, giving her a fund of thought for the coming week. Her pastor and her Sabbath school teacher are felt to be her best friends, and their kindness is a strong allurement to her spirit, often keeping her long from her less favored home. If it is said that many a one has here found a grave, shall it not also be said that many a one has here found the path to heaven? The writer is aware that this sketch is an imperfect one, yet there is very little variety in an operative's life, and little difference between it and any other life of labor. It lies half in sunlight, half in shade. Few would wish to spend a whole life in a factory, and few are discontented who do thus seek a subsistence for a term of months or years. Author unknown, Volume 5, 1845, pages 217 and 18. A second peep at factory life. There is an old saying that when we are with the Romans, we must do as the Romans do. And now, kind friend, as we are about to renew our walk, I beg that you will give heed to it, and do as factory girls do. After this preliminary, we will proceed to the factory. There is the counting room, a long, low brick building, and opposite is the storehouse, built of the same material, after the same model. Between them swings the ponderous gate that shuts the mills in from the world without. But stop, we must get a pass ere we go through, or the watchman will be after us. Having obtained this, we will stop on the slight elevation by the gate, and view the mills. The one to the left rears high in its huge sides of brick and mortar, and the belfry, towering far above the rest, stands out in bold relief against the rosy sky. The almost innumerable windows glitter like gems in the morning sunlight. It is 6.5 stories high, and like the fabled monster of old who guarded the sacred waters of Mars, It seems to guard its less aspiring sister to the right, that is 5.5 stories high, and to it is attached the repair shop. If you please, we will pass into the larger factory, but be careful, or you will get lost in the mud, for this yard is not laid out in such beautiful order as some of the factory yards are, nor can it be. We will just look into the first room. It is used for cleaning cloth. You see, the scrubbing and scouring machines are in full operation, and gigging and fulling are going on in full perfection, as it is very damp, and the labor is performed by the other half of creation. We will pass on, for fear of incurring their jealousy. But the very appearance might indicate that there are occasionally fogs and clouds, and not only fogs and clouds, but sometimes plentiful showers. In the second room, the cloth is finished, going through the various operations of burling, shearing, brushing, inking, fine drawing, pressing, and packing for market. This is the pleasantest room on the corporation, and consequently they are never in want of help. The shearing, brushing, pressing, and packing is done by males, while the burling, inking, marking, and fine drawing is performed by females. We will pass into the third room, called the cashmere weaving room, where all kinds of cloths are woven, from the plain to the most exquisite fancy. There are between 80 and 90 looms, and part of the dressing is also done here. The fourth is the broad weaving room, and contains between 30 and 40 looms, and broad sure enough they are. Just see how lazy the lathe drags backward and forward, and the shuttle, how spitefully it hops from one end of it to the other. But we must not stop longer, or perchance it will hop at us. You look weary, but never mind. There is an end to Jacob's ladder, and so there is a termination to these stairs. Now, if you please, we will go up to the next room, where the spinning is done. Here we have spinning jacks, or jennies, that dance merrily along, whizzing and singing, as they spin out their long yarns. And it seems but pleasure to watch their movements, but it is hard work, and requires good health and much strength. Do not go too near, as we shall find that they do not understand the established rules of etiquette, and might unceremoniously knock us over. We must not stop here longer, for it is 12 o'clock, and we have the carding room to visit before dinner. There are between 20 and 30 sets of cards located closely together, and I beg of you to be careful as we go amongst them, or you will get caught in the machinery. You walk as though you were afraid of getting blue. Please excuse me if I ask you not to be afraid. 'Tis a wholesome color, and soap and water will wash it off. The girls, you see, are partially guarded against it by overskirts and sleeves, but it is not fashionable to wear masks. They cannot keep it from their faces. You appear surprised at the hurry and bustle now going on in the room, but your attention has been so engaged that you have forgotten the hour. Just look at the clock, and you will find that it wants but 5 minutes to bell time. We will go to the door and be ready to start when the others do. And now, while we are waiting, just cast your eyes to the stairway, and you will see another flight of stairs leading to another spinning room. A picker is located somewhere in that region, but I cannot give you a description of it, as I have never had the courage to ascend more than 5 flights of stairs at a time. But the bells ring. Now look out, not for the engine, but for the rush to the stairway. Oh, mercy, what a crowd! I do not wonder you gasp for breath. But keep up courage. We shall soon be on terra firma again. Now safely landed, I hope to be excused for taking you into such a crowd. Really, it would not be fair to let you see the factory girls and machinery for nothing. I shall be obliged to hurry you, as it is some way to the boarding house, and we have but 30 minutes from the time the bell begins to ring till it is done ringing again, and then all are required to be at their work. There is a group of girls yonder going our way. Let us overtake them and hear what they are talking about. Something unpleasant, I dare say, from their earnest gestures and clouded brows. Well, I do think it is too bad, exclaims one. So do I, says another. This cutting down wages is not what they cry it up to be. I wonder how they'd like it to work as hard as we do, digging and drudging day after day, from morning till night, and then, every 2 or 3 years, have their wages reduced. I rather guess it wouldn't set very well. And besides this, who ever heard of such a thing as their being raised again? Says the first speaker. I confess that I never did, so long as I've worked in the mill, and that's been these 10 years. Well, it is real provoking anyhow, returned the other. For my part, I should think that they have made a clean sweep this time. I wonder what they'll do next. Listeners never hear any good of themselves, is a trite saying, and for fear it may prove true in our case, we will leave this busy group and get some dinner. There is an open door inviting us to enter. We will do so. You can hang your bonnet and shawl on one of those hooks that extend the length of the entry for that purpose, or you can lay them on the banisters, as some do. Please walk into the dining room. Here are 2 large square tables, covered with checked cloth and loaded down with smoking viands, the odor of which is very inviting. But we will not stop here. There is the long table in the front room, at which 10 or 15 can be comfortably seated. You may place yourself at the head. Now do not be bashful or wait to be helped, but comply with the oft-made request, help yourself to whatever it is you like best, for you have but a few minutes allotted to you to spend at the table. The reason why is because you are a rational, intelligent, thinking being, and ought to know enough to swallow your food whole, whereas a horse or an ox or any other dumb beast knows no better than to spend an hour in useless process of mastication. The bell rings again, and the girls are hurrying to the mills. You, I suppose, have seen enough of them for one day, so we will walk upstairs and have a tete-a-tete. You ask if there are so many things objectionable. Why we work in the mill? Well, simply for this reason. Every situation in life has its trials which must be borne. The factory life has no more than any other. There are many things we do not like, many occurrences that send the warm blood mantling to the cheek when they must be borne in silence, and many harsh words and acts are not called for. There are objections also to the number of hours we work, to the length of time allotted to our meals, and to the low wages allowed for labor. Objections that must and will be answered, for the time has come when something besides the clothing and feeding of the body is to be thought of, when the mind is to be clothed and fed. And this cannot be as it should be with the present system of labor. Who, let me ask, can find that pleasure in life which they should, when it is spent in this way, without time for the laborer's own work and the improvement of the mind, save the few evening hours, and even then, if the mind is enriched and stored with useful knowledge, it must be at the expense of health, and the feeling, too, that comes over us There is no use in denying it. When we hear the bell calling us away from repose, that tired nature loudly claims the feeling that we are all obliged to go, and these few hours of which we have spoken are far too short, 3 at the most, at the close of day. Surely, methinks, every heart that lays claim to humanity will feel 'tis not enough. But this, we hope, will ere long be done away with, and labor made what it should be, pleasant and inviting to every son and daughter of the human family. There is a brighter side to this picture, over which we would not willingly pass without notice, and in answer to the question why we work here. The time we do have is our own. The money we earn comes promptly, more so than any other situation, and our work, though laborious, is the same from day to day. We know what it is, and when finished, we feel perfectly free, till it is time to commence it again. Besides this, there are many pleasant associations connected with factory life that are not to be found elsewhere. There are lectures, evening schools, and libraries, to which all may have access. The one thing needful here is the time to improve them as we ought. There is a class of whom I would speak that work in the mills, and will while they continue in operation, namely, the many who have no home, and who come here to seek, in this busy, bustling city of spindles, a competency that shall enable them, in afterlife, to live without being a burden to society. The many who toil on, without a murmur, for the support of an aged mother or orphan brother and sister. For the sake of them, we earnestly hope labor may be reformed, that the miserable, selfish spirit of competition now in our midst may be thrust from us and consigned to eternal oblivion. There is one other thing that must be mentioned ere we part. That is the practice of sending agents through the country to decoy girls away from their homes with the promise of high wages, when the market is already stocked to overflowing. This is certainly wrong, for it lessens the value of labor, which should be ever held in high estimation, as the path marked out by the right hand of God, in which man should walk with dignity. And now, kind friend, we must part. I beg pardon for intruding so long upon your time and patience, and also for not introducing you to Dorcas Hardscrabble. I feared I should weary you, and besides, many hard-scrabbling Dorcases may be found among the factory girls. One word for that has been said. It has been uttered for truth's sake, and because called for. If it does not answer your expectations, a companion must be sought that will please the fancy better. J.L.B. Josephine L. Baker, Volume 5, 1845, 97 through 100. And that was the Lowell offering, a peek at the mill. So, if you enjoyed this episode, would you please give me a like, subscribe, and share, and we shall continue the Lowell offering another time. Have a good evening, everyone.